Hi, it's Future from Sewmate. Welcome to my channel. If you want to see how I make this color blocked shift dress, please stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification bell so that you'll be notified each time I upload new videos. So you will need your bodice block to do this. I'll put a link in the description below and a link above as well for you to go and make one for yourself. So as usual, trace around your block, marking the dots. Lift your block, draw in your dots, square in your waistline. Now from the hip line, lengthen your dress to your desired length. I'm using 30 centimeters. Square a line on your hem and square across the hip line as well. Just adding the hem allowance there, I'm using 3 centimeters. At the neckline, we're going to lower the neckline by 3 centimeters. So square a line from there. Then from this new neckline, we're going to measure 10 centimeters down, put a mark, and square a little line across. From the neck shoulder point, we're going to go in by 5 centimeters. Square a line down. Now measure 6 centimeters, put a mark and square another line down. With your curved ruler, connect your neckline. Coming to the armhole point, we're going to go up 1 centimeter and in by 1 centimeter to adjust for the sleeveless armhole. Put a mark and square a line across. Draw in your new armhole. From the hemline, we're going to extend out by 10 centimeters. Extend this hemline. Now connect these 2 points with a straight line. From the point there, go up by 4 centimeters. Put a mark and square a little line down. With your curved ruler, draw in the new hemline, connecting from this point. Now finish off the hemline following the new shape we just put in, like I'm doing here. From the armhole point, go down by 6 centimeters and put a mark. Square a line across. Now with your free hand, draw in your desired curve there. Now I'm coming in with my curved ruler to just make a nice smooth curve. Cancel the dart out, we're not gonna use it. Now I'm drawing in my strip for the front, 3 centimeters from the center front. From the waistline, we're gonna go down 10 centimeters to start drawing in our pocket. So just draw a square which is 15 by 20 centimeters long, like I'm doing here. Now I'm drawing in my hour punches so that it will be easier for me to position my pockets when it comes to cutting and sewing. And adding seam allowances right round, which is 1 centimeter. Now get a fresh pattern paper and put it down. Then with your tracing wheel, trace your pocket around so that we have a pattern piece for the pocket, like I'm doing here. Outline the markings using your ruler, like I'm doing here. Now I'm drawing in my grain line for the pocket piece and labeling the pattern, patch pocket, cut 4, and I put my initial, cut around the pattern piece. And since this is a color blocked dress, these pockets are going to be in the color black. Now adding seam allowances to the neckline there, I'm adding 1 centimeter, and to the armhole I'm adding 1 centimeter as well. With your curved ruler, just correct the curves. Now adding a balancing notch and the rest of the notches on the pattern. Balancing notches on the center front piece as well. Now labeling the pattern piece, labeling the top pattern front yoke, cut 2, and I put my initial, and it's going to be in black. Labeling the center front panel, cut 1 on fold, and I put my initial. So it's gonna be on fold. Labeling the main dress, side front panel, cut 1 pair, and I put my initial. So this is going to be in the color blue, and the center front panel is gonna be in black. Now cut around your patterns like I'm doing there. Now I'm drawing in my grain line parallel to the center front there. And drawing in the grain line as well parallel to the center front for the yoke piece. Now I'm adding joining seam allowances to all the pattern pieces, like I'm doing here, 1 centimeter seam allowances. And transfer the notches over to the seam allowance. Cutting around the pattern. Adding a seam allowance to the top part of the side front panel as well, 1 centimeter seam allowance. Reshaping the cave with the curved ruler there. Now transferring the notch across, cut around the pattern. Now I'm adding a seam allowance to the yoke piece as well. 1 centimeter seam allowance. Transferring the notch. Fixing the shape there with a curved ruler and cutting around the pattern. Adding a seam allowance to the center front panel. 1 centimeter seam allowance as usual. Cut around the pattern. Then transfer the notches across, balancing notches. Don't forget to add a seam allowance to the top part of the pattern piece as well. 1 centimeter seam allowance as usual, and cut around the pattern. Now you need to put 2 important notches, that's for the hem allowance there, so that you know when you are cutting that this is the bottom part. All our patterns for the front are finished. Now moving on to making the back patterns. Trace around your block as usual, marking the dots. Lift your pattern. Draw in your dot. From the hip line, extend the length to your desired length. I'm using 30 centimeters as I've done with the front. Square line across as I'm doing here, and square another line from the hip line there. Now adding the hem allowance, I'm using 3 centimeters like I've done with the front. Squaring in my waistline, and from the neckline I'm gonna go down 2 centimeters and put a mark and square a little line across. From the new neckline, go down 15 centimeters, put a mark and square a line across like I'm doing here. From the neck shoulder point, I'm going in 5 centimeters like I've done with the front and square a line down. Go 6 centimeters from that line and square another line. With your curved ruler, draw in the new neckline. Now I'm adjusting the armhole for a sleeveless dress, so going up 1 centimeter and in 1 centimeter, put a mark and square a line across. Draw in the new armhole. At the hem level, go out by 10 centimeters and put a mark. Extend the hemline out like I'm doing here. Now join these 2 points with a straight line. From the point there, go up 4 centimeters, put a mark, square a line down. With a curved ruler, connect the hemline like I'm doing here. From the armhole, go down 6 centimeters, put a mark and square a line across. Now with your free hand, connect a nice shape. I'm going in with my curved ruler there to just correct the shape. Adding balancing notches there, double notches for the back, cancelling the dart out. From the waistline, measure and mark down 18 centimeters, put a notch, go down 1 centimeter and put another notch to mark the zipper notch. Now adding seam allowances to the armhole 1 centimeter and the neckline 1 centimeter as well. and going in with my curved ruler to correct the shape there. Now I'm extending the waistline, the hip line, and finishing off the hemline, following through the new curve that we just drafted. Putting in my notches. And labeling the yoke, back yoke, cut 2 pairs, and I put my initial, plus 1 pair fusing. Now I'm adding the grain line parallel to the center back and adding the grain line for the main dress parallel to the center back too. And labeling the pattern, back dress, cut 1 pair, and I put my initial, and this is going to be in blue. And the yoke is going to be in black. Now cut around the pattern like I'm doing here. And adding seam allowances to the top part of the back dress, 1 centimeter seam allowance. Transferring the notches across to the edge and reshaping the curves with the curved ruler. Now cut around your pattern. Adding a seam allowance to the yoke as well, 1 centimeter as usual. Just follow through this process like we did with the front yoke. It's the same, and our patterns are finished, and now we're moving on to sewing. Moving on to sewing our dress. So you need your patterns ready and you need your fabrics. I'm using 2 different colored fabrics. So I've got black and blue here, and I've got a matching zipper as well for the dress. And I also got my cutting tools ready. So now we're moving on to cutting. For the yoke pieces, we've got 2 sets. So one set is going to work as our facings. So for the facing pieces, remember to trim off 3 millimeters along the neckline edges and the armhole edges. Do the same with the back pieces as well. 3 millimeters trim off along the neckline and the armhole. So I'm gonna do that now. Okay, so I cut all my pattern pieces and I went ahead and put some interfacing to one set of the yoke, which is going to be our facing. So I'm gonna put these pieces on the side. So just take your center front piece and lay it on top of the side front piece like this, matching the edges, and just pin along the edge. Okay, so now we're gonna take this to the sewing machine and sew along this edge here and overlock it. I'm gonna do that now. Okay, so I've done that, and now I went ahead and I gave it a nice press, and I ironed the seam towards the side seam here. Okay, so with the right side up, get the other side front piece and just lay it on top like this, matching the edges and the notches, and just pin it along. Now take this to the sewing machine and stitch along here with a 1 cm seam allowance and overlock the edge as well. Okay, that's done, and I went ahead and ironed it flat, as you can see, nicely. So get your front yoke and pin it along this edge here. So you take this to the sewing machine and just stitch along here with a 1 cm seam allowance, and then we overlock this edge as well. So whilst we're there, we're gonna take our back pieces as well and join them with the back yoke pieces. So just pin them along right sides together. Now take this to the sewing machine and sew along here with a 1 cm seam allowance and overlock both of them. I'm gonna do that now. Okay, so that's all done. We've joined the yokes to the dresses. It's nice. Even the back pieces. And I went ahead and ironed the seams facing up. Okay, next what we're gonna do is to attach our patch pockets onto the front dress. So what we're gonna do is to take the 4 pieces that we cut for the pockets, take 2 right sides together like this, and then go to the sewing machine and sew along the edges all around with a 1 cm seam allowance and leave about 5 cm so you can be able to turn the pockets to the right side for both pockets. Let's do that. Okay, so now turn your pockets to the right side through the hole that we left unstitched. Okay, and now take these to your iron and iron them nice and flat. Okay, let's do that. Okay, so I just finished ironing the pockets and they look nice and flat. So now we're going to position them on the front dress here using the punches that we put here with an owl punch. So now we take this to the sewing machine and sew along the edges here with an edge stitching, okay, to attach the pockets. Let's do that. Okay, now so I finished with attaching the pockets. Now moving on to the back of our dress to attach the zipper. Now get your back pieces and go and overlock these edges here, the center back edges, overlock them to the bottom. Okay, so the next thing for us to do now is to install our invisible zipper. So the first step is to lay the back pieces right sides together like this. And pin along this edge. Now we're going to take this to the sewing machine and do a basting stitch, which is the longest stitch on your sewing machine, along this seam here until you get to the zipper notch. From the zipper notch, back tack, and then use the normal sewing stitch to the bottom. Let's do that. Okay, so I've done that and I went ahead and ironed my seam open. What we're gonna do is to lay the middle part of our zipper here right on top of the seam here, okay? Leave an extension of about 2.5 centimeters and lay your zipper next to the zipper notches here, okay? Now just pin your zipper along the seam allowance only, okay? Like I'm doing here. I'm going to be sewing this zipper in 2 stages. So the first step is for us to just attach the zipper to the seam allowance here, okay, and do the same on this side, okay. Let's do that. Okay, so I've done that and I went ahead and removed all the basting stitches that we put at the top here to the zipper notch. So now you're gonna open your zipper and then you're gonna straighten up the zipper like this, and we're going to do our second row of stitching very close to the zipper tip here using a zipper foot or an invisible zipper foot all the way down, and you do the same on this side as well. Let's do that. Okay, now so I finished with installing my invisible zipper. And I went ahead and ironed it down nicely, okay. So the next thing for us to do now is to take our facing pieces and go and overlock the bottom edge here. Overlock the bottom edge and do the same with this one, overlock the whole bottom edge. Let's do that. Okay, so that's done. We've overlocked everything at the bottom and the center back seams as well. And we've overlocked the bottom part as well here, okay. So now open your zipper out like this, with your facing right side facing down. Just align the edges like I'm doing here. Take this to the sewing machine and sew along the armholes and the neckline and leave the shoulders open, okay. Do the same with this one, along the armholes and the neckline, and you come through here as well. Okay, so that's done. And the next thing for us to do now is to clip along the edges here, okay. I'm just gonna cut the zipper here and trim the corners as well. Turn this to the right side. Now take this to the iron and give them a nice press so that they all lay flat, okay? Now get your back piece with the right side up. And lay the front on top of it with the right side up. So what we're going to do now is to finish the shoulders. So put your hand under here and make sure to grab the top part. Like I'm doing here. Make sure it's well aligned and just pin along the edge. Do the same on the other side. Put your hand under this facing like this and put it through. Grab the top part, bring it in. Align them nicely like I'm doing here. Now Now take this to the sewing machine and sew along the shoulders here with a 1.5 centimeter seam allowance. Let's do that. Okay, so I've sewn the shoulders. Now you just bring them forward like this. Look how nice and clean it looks. And the inside is clean too. Inside and the outside. Okay, just gonna go and give it a press. Now we're going to sew the side seams. So turn your dress to the wrong side. Like this. What you are gonna do is to take your facing pieces, put them right sides together, and start pinning, matching all the seams. Okay, so take this to the sewing machine and sew along the side seams here and overlock them. After that, we're going to hem our dress. So just overlock the whole edge and we're gonna do a blind hem stitch. Okay, I'm gonna do that now. Okay, so I finished with the dress. I did the blind hem stitch along here, and I also went ahead and attached the facing here through the right side. I did a ditch stitching here to catch the facing at the back, okay, so that it keeps laying flat nicely. And our dress is finished and I'm so happy with the result. Thank you.